Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Urban Gardener. I'm just kidding. Today, I'm going to do a video of how to start a raised bed garden if you've never started a garden. So this is my backyard. Ooh, there's some magnolia tree. We trimmed our magnolia, and that's the trimmings. This is a little cushion that I got, or well, we already had it for our patio furniture, and then I got some paint from Home Depot. They have like patio furniture paint, so you can just paint it a different color, and I like it. I just need to get more, and I actually need to prime that one and then repaint it because it's a dark fabric with patterns, and then I painted it like a turquoise, and the stripes show through. What this amounts to is that we have a whole bunch of projects that we started and not finished. We also have random fence posts around the property because we're putting in a fence, and a half torn down building back there because when we moved in, it was basically rotted out floorboards and real nasty, and it needed to be replaced. So anyway, but yeah, today I'm going to show you what I have done for a raised bed urban garden, and then I will walk you through some important information that I have found out about gardening. So if you are looking to start your very own urban garden, then this is the video for you. Okay, so I am standing outside. Hopefully the air conditioner is not too loud. There's a box in my yard because we rescued a fledgling bird and we're trying to save it from the cat. And then there was a hideous storm yesterday that blew everything all over the place. Thankfully, the only thing that blew around our yard is that box. Our trampoline stayed, but lots of people had a lot of trees down. Anyway, we're good. So I'm gonna show you my garden, what I've planted, and then I will explain why I planted what I planted and why I planted it where I planted it, and how I prepared the garden bed to plant it. So we're starting on this side. We have carrots right here, and if you actually look, you can see, can you see? Oh, you can see tiny, look at tiny little carrots growing. We have a few cherry tomato plants down there. I don't actually remember what kind of cherry. Well, they are Juliet tomatoes, so they're small, oblong, cherry type tomatoes. Grape tomatoes, I guess, just like for salads or snacking, and those are for Tim. We have marigolds planted around the border here. Now this is lettuce, and there's none coming up yet, but that's okay because it takes 7 to 14 days, and this is only day 8. This is cucumbers in this area, and we also don't have any of those coming up yet. Over here is our sweet corn, the Silver Queen hybrid sweet corn, and you can see that there is corn coming up all over the place. Lots of corn over there. This stuff has been coming up for a few days. And then over here, oh, he's come out more since this morning. Over here we have our little pumpkin. I am growing some small sugar pumpkins that I'm hoping to be able to use to cook with. And then in this row, we've planted watermelon seeds, and we do have that little watermelon guy coming up right there. And I'm sure there will be more. Oh, there's another one right over here, right there. Oh, and another one over there, and a bunch more over there. So the watermelons are doing well. And then these are sunflowers. Lily wanted to plant some sunflowers, and I let her plant them herself, which is why they're grouped all together, but they're gonna be beautiful. And then of course the marigolds around the perimeter. So that's what we have planted right now. Next year, we're hoping to grow like maybe a salsa garden type thing. Because my kids love salsa, particularly Alex. He loves to eat salsa, and he eats so much of it. Tim really likes it too. And their papa has made them salsa before out of his salsa garden. And so now that we're on the other side of the country from them, it's kind of hard to get the salsa. I figured maybe I'd have a go at growing it and getting his recipe and making some salsa. So next year we'll probably have like a salsa garden, and then maybe just like a dedicated like salad garden, like with lettuce and tomatoes and cucumbers and carrots and all that stuff. And then maybe another garden that has like, I don't know, other stuff in it. So I will tell you what I have learned and what my regrets are. I do wish that with this garden I would have, I'm trying to hold this steady, I'm sorry. I would have planted fewer things for the garden bed, because it's a decent sized garden bed, but I put 2 kinds of like large melons. Well, I guess one's a melon, one's a gourd. I put 2 larger plants, which is the pumpkins and the watermelons, in the same thing, and I don't know where they're gonna grow. I think I'm gonna have to like cull some of the plants and then just train the vines over the edge of the flower bed and let them grow on the ground, because there's not room. I didn't think that out before I planted them. But you live and you learn. And then you do better next time. I don't know if you can hear the screaming. There are, like I said, we rescued some fledglings. There are 2 tiny little baby blue jay fledglings in this bush over here. They came out of this giant oak tree. But this oak tree is right in the front part of our backyard where all the cats hang out. So they instantly were going to be lunch. So we chased them to that bush over there. Actually, we chased them to a bush farther over in the back property, and then one of them came back out, and then another one came out of the nest, and so we chased them over to this bush here. And then the next day we found a little brown thrasher fledgling. We actually found it in our cat Barryon's mouth, and Alex panicked, and Tim jumped over several fences chasing him. He finally dropped the bird, and we put him in that box to see if he was gonna be okay. He was in shock for a while, but he seemed to be okay. His foot was hurt, but he was bouncing around fine, and so his mom was still trying to find him to feed him. So we put him in a box over there. And I actually saw him today. He was out in the yard, hopping around, and Mom was feeding him. His leg still looks injured, but his feathers are growing in good, and he's almost to the point where he can fly. So we're gonna let nature take its course and see how he does. But anyway, that is neither here nor there. We're talking about gardens, not fledgling birds. So for our flower bed, you'll see that we used, I'm gonna flip around and show you. Okay, hold on. You'll see that we used, so it's 2 layers. We stacked 2 sets of 2x6s on it. So it's a total of 12 inches tall. And what we did is we took 3 2x6s for each level, cut 1 in half. So we basically about 6 and cut 2 in half. And so we have a 4x8 flower bed. So they're 2x6x8. And it's filled about 10 inches deep with soil, which is ideal because that gives it enough depth for the roots to really take hold, and it also will allow the soil to kind of retain some moisture. So what I found when I was researching, oh, let's come back here. What I found when I was researching is that if you are doing a raised bed, you have to be really conscious of the soil that you put in there so that it can retain moisture, and also so that it has enough nutrients. So what we did was, it's probably not ideal, but we got topsoil from Home Depot for pretty inexpensively, and then we bought mushroom compost from Home Depot also, which was a little more expensive. So we did like a 2-to-1 ratio, or 3-to-1 ratio. We did 3 bags. Was it 3? Wait, it was 2. I'm sorry, it was 2. We did 2 bags of topsoil and then 1 bag of compost for 2 bags of topsoil, and we just mixed it all in together and turned it. Ideally, what you want to do is, if you can get a compost that's from multiple sources, that's what's supposed to be best. So like part steer manure, part vegetable compost, part grass clippings or whatever is ideal, just from more than one source. So just cow, like, because you can buy steer manure, but like just manure, just, you know, composted, I don't know, grass clippings is not ideal because it doesn't give the best nitrogen and nutritive content balance, but it is what it is. We don't have our own compost yet. We did start one, which I'll tell you about in a second, but we did start one, but it won't be ready until next year. So anyway, that's how we mix the soil together, and the mushroom compost and the topsoil are really good for, the combination is good for retaining moisture. The mushroom compost also works really well for like a mulch over the top to retain moisture, so mixing it in is a good thing too. So it won't drain too quickly, it'll retain some moisture, which keeps things from drying out, which is really good, especially in the south where we can have hot days, which will dry things out. So that is how we mixed the soil. For watering, we use a soaker hose that we put down, and I use that because when you do overhead watering, it can lead to like mildew and fungus type issues on the leaves of the plants once they get bigger, and also it can cause burning of the plants. Like if you were to water with just a sprinkler that sprinkles on top, it would get everything wet, but it also, the plants can be prone to burning, especially if you water when the sun's out and hits it. It can actually burn the plants, and that can be bad for them. So we opted to go with a soaker hose. When we add more beds, we will just extend the hose and wrap it around. You can do up to 100 foot of soaker hose on one hose and still get enough excuse me, I'm like, I had chicken and dumplings for lunch and now I'm like super like hiccupy. You can add up to 100 feet and still get enough pressure to water. So that was the next thing that we chose to do. We had to pick which way to water and we decided to go with a soaker hose. For the planter box itself, the raised bed box itself, you have options. A lot of people will do like pressure treated lumber because it lasts longer. But if you do pressure treated lumber, you need to make sure that you do pressure treated, like new that you buy. Don't use reclaimed, because if it was prior to like 2003 or 2006, I can't remember now, I think it was 2006. If it's prior to that, the chemical that they use to pressure treat it actually would leach arsenic into the soil, which obviously you don't want to grow your vegetables in arsenic. The stuff they use now will leach copper in there, but copper, it's like, it's kind of here, you know, it's a risk versus benefit thing, I guess. We opted to go with just plain pine boards, so they aren't pressure treated, they won't last as long, but from what I was reading, people were getting like 7 to 10 years of good life out of their pine boards, and so we just opted to go with that. And then we painted the outsides and the top rails to just give it a little more protection from the weather and life to it. But if I have to replace the boards every 10 years, I'm like, whatever. It's like, I mean, the pine boards were not that expensive. So that's what we opted to do there. For planting, by the way, I got a whole bunch of this information through links on Pinterest and just read and read and read. There's lots of blogs and lots of posts that people have made that are like avid urban gardeners or even just avid gardeners, that they've posted all this information. So I spent hours and hours and hours reading Pinterest and posting and pinning and making boards and figuring out what to do, which is just, it's a great resource. I'm breaking it down for you here, but if you want more detail, go to Pinterest. So there's another thing called companion planting. This is what I didn't know. I had to learn about both raised beds and about gardening, because I gardened with my grandma and my great grandma when I was growing up, but I helped them like put the seeds in the ground and then like weed and then, you know, harvest and snap the beans and can them and stuff, but I just basically did what I was told. There was no reason behind it. So I read about companion planting. Apparently, when you make a garden, there are things you should plant next to each other and there are things you should not plant next to each other. Like tomatoes should not be planted next to cucumbers. They don't like each other. But things like marigolds should be planted throughout because they help repel pests, and I can't even remember what they are right now. There's so many different combinations, but some things like grow really well next to each other. Like carrots and tomatoes like each other, so those are good. And corn is good next to melons and gourds and things like that. And cucumbers, like I said, no go next to tomatoes, but they're okay next to strawberry. Like there's so many different things. And there's a lot of people that have done the research and the work, and so they've laid out like optimal planting ideas for what to put next to each other. That's why we did the things in the order that we did them, because we have cucumbers, but I put cucumbers, or I put the tomatoes at one end and then carrots and lettuce in between the cucumbers. So hopefully they're far enough apart. We shall find out, but ideally, like I said, if this goes well, we'll add 1 or 2 more planter boxes and maybe separate some of those things out so that they're nowhere near each other. Trying to think what else the important things were. I think that's basically it. The stuff that we planted is all early plant stuff. We live in the hardiness zone, I think 8A, 7B, I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's a fairly good climate year round. We don't get a ton of frost. So all this stuff was planted. The important thing is you plant after the after the risk of frost has passed, because you don't want to grow your stuff inside from starts and then put it out and have it die. I did not start the tomatoes from seed. I bought tomato plants because it's how I roll. But the rest of it was really easy to start from seed. So hopefully the lettuce and the cucumbers come up and I'm not lying. But anyway, that is the basic gist of starting a raised bed garden, vegetable garden, if you have never done a raised bed before. Also, if you've never gardened before. I can't recommend Pinterest enough. It will link you to blogs and vlogs and articles and websites that will be invaluable to you. I've given you a rundown. You could probably do it with what I've told you, but if you want more information, go check out Pinterest. Anyway, that's it. Hopefully it will continue to grow and I will have progress to report back. My next big task is we are getting chickens. Once we get this fence put in that I discussed, we are going to get a chicken coop and have some free range chickens. We'll coop them up at night but let them wander during the day. Hopefully it will control the pests. We are going to install, so our garden right now is just open, it's just starting to grow. We're going to get some chicken wire and some posts and put wire around the garden. Eventually, when we have multiple flower beds, we will have it kind of connected and have a walkway between them and have a gate to go in and out. It'll be super fancy and pretty. Right now, we're probably just going to do something very rudimentary to just keep out bunny rabbits, because we have those around here, and deer, because we have those around here, and to keep the cats from burying precious little pieces of kitty roca in my flower bed, because nobody wants to fertilize their garden that way. Also, as I mentioned, we have a compost pile that we've started now, so that's over in the corner of the property over there. I read on compost, and the important thing here seems to be it needs water, you gotta turn it, and you need to compost green and brown materials. So brown things like cardboard or wood chips, or like paper can be used, just things of that nature, and then green things like vegetable clippings, fruit clippings, like anything that you cut off of or don't use, apple cores, banana peels, potato skins, whatever can go in there. You cannot compost meat, you cannot compost dairy, and apparently it has to be said, because I read it on more than one site, you should not compost feces. At least no feces that come from within your home. So please, no cat poo, no dog poo, hopefully your dog's not pooping in your house, and no people poo in your compost. That's basically the gist of it. So hopefully all of you wannabe urban gardeners have found out something useful from this information and can now go out and start your own garden. I am going to continue to try and maintain this garden. Like I said, we're gonna try and do chickens. I will let you know how that goes. Definitely gonna do a video of that. Hopefully this fall we'll start the chickens, because if we have a trip planned in August, or end of July, beginning of August, and if we get that trip, when we get back from that trip, we intend to go start getting our chickens, and that way we can grow them big enough to where they can be outside for the winter and they should be laying by spring, is the goal. So we'll have a great garden where we can I want to plant like beans, like green beans. I love fresh picked home canned green beans. Oh, so good, so good. But yeah, we want to do all that stuff. And so yeah, if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. I will be doing more videos in regards to my gardening adventures, and eventually my chicken adventures. And I don't know what else, who knows. We're composting, I'm gonna learn to can. It's gonna be a thing, y'all. It's like urban homesteading, okay? We're not going off the grid, but we're gonna learn how to go off the grid in case we want to. I don't know, I'm just making this stuff up. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me, and I will see you back. I will see you back again real soon.